record. I just want to say hello. Please ignore that gigantic trampoline that's in the back that is still left over from Christmas to my kids, and they won't let me move it outside. It started raining. Welcome to Graphic Design. This is DES 109. I am Mrs. Woodland. I am so excited to be here today. I love graphic design, and so I'm hoping that we'll have fun in our class. Today I've got some fun exercises we're going to do. I don't like to lecture all the time, so I'm going to kind of turn the time over to you to share your screen if you want to show us something. What I usually like to do is cover a concept. I'll do an assignment demo. I'll always do the assignment demos so that you know exactly what is going to be expected and exactly how to do it. And then I'll do some short exercises where I'll do a quick demo and then I'll ask you to try it. And then if you want to share your screen and show it off, we'd love to see it, kind of show the class. It's totally up to you. I know some people are uncomfortable doing that, so it's strictly on a volunteer basis. If you don't want to, that's fine. We'll just move on to the next demo. But this is going to be a hands-on design class because I like working in design more than I like talking about it. So we'll just end there. So tell me a little bit about yourself as you're in class. Just really want to know, I'm looking forward to reading the Introduce Yourself section on the course homepage of where you guys are from and how you would visually describe yourself. I'm not sure if you saw that part, but really quick, I just found out we've got one in class that is in the Eastern time zone. Is there anybody with graphic design experience that is already in this class, or is this new concepts for you? I would probably say a good majority of us are beginners. Now, do you have any experience with graphic design? Or I guess I should say the software, the InDesign or Illustrator. I know some of a little bit, yeah. I know some of us are kind of vaguely familiar with it, but that's fine. Welcome to class. My name is Mrs. Woodland. Let me give a little bit of quick background, and then I want you to kind of tell me a little bit about yourself. I'd love to get to know you as well. So I'm not born in Texas, but raised there my whole life, and so I would say I've been there for about 20 years, and then moved to California. So now I'm on the West Coast, so opposite of you, Rodney. So I'm in the Pacific time zone, but I've been a graphic designer for about 15 years now, an instructor for about 8 years, and I absolutely love it. And I'm hoping that you'll have fun in my class because that's what I want to have happen. I want you to enjoy coming to class and look forward to it. Let's talk, let's get some housekeeping out of the way real quick. This is a new class, first day, so I just want to make sure that you know how to get a hold of me because something will come up, and when it does, I want you to be able to know exactly how to contact me. So what I like to do is provide my email address here. This is also, all this contact information is in the syllabus under the contact info section, so you can find this. I also sent out a welcome emails with my contact information. Email is the best way to get a hold of me. You can call or text. I don't always answer if it's a weird time. Just be mindful of the time zone. I had some students calling me at 3 a.m. and wondered why I didn't pick up, and I said, sorry, I'm sleeping. So my office hours are usually in the afternoons from about 11 to 1 Pacific time. So you can call anytime during that slot, and I'm usually in my office, and that's fine. But anytime outside of that time zone, I'll have to find a time to give you a call back. So email me though, because I'm always on my email. You can shoot me a text, and if I can get to you, I'll always text you back. So I want you to just feel comfortable reaching out if you need anything. Introduce yourself with your name and your course number in the Introduce Yourself section, and also let me know who you are in the email, and kind of explain to me any problems that come up, whether it be software or whatever, and I'll try to steer you in the right direction, kind of get you in touch with a person who can help. I posted a frequently asked questions section in the announcements of questions that students often have, and number one is usually my laptop, having laptop problems, or the software downloads, or students have issues with the software. So if that's the case, I put some IT contact info in there for you. So please be aware of that, and that's where you'll go to contact to get those problems resolved. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to help with that part. I can help you troubleshoot, but I don't have passwords and codes and download links and anything like that. So, and I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to the hardware of the computer, just the software. So let's talk a little bit about policies. So everything's pretty standard across the online campus, but I want to let you know that the number one policy that usually students miss is the discussion late policy. I don't accept late discussions simply because that's a way that we take attendance in this class. So if you got a 0 on it, or you were not participating during the week, then there's no real way to make that up. So no late discussion posts are accepted. That's kind of the only thing that we don't accept late. That's just college policy, not mine. I don't really have control over that, but I am held to it, so I do have to hold you to it as well. But as far as late work, you can turn late work in up to 1 week past the due date. So I know some students says, oh, I work or something came up, and it's really good news for those who need that extra time. So you have the time to do it. You do get a 20% drop in the grade, but it's not much, and it's better than a 0. So please take advantage of that if you need it. Also, I just wanted to let you know that I like to offer my students the opportunity to resubmit assignments. You get 1 resubmission per assignment, and that's only if you apply the grading feedback that I give you the week prior. So if you do turn it in late, usually we'll have to talk about whether or not there's time to rework an assignment, but just make sure you get the assignments turned in time so you have the time to rework them, resubmit them, and get a better grade or get more points on it. I feel like this is a great way to kind of help your software skills. Very seldom do I get anything right the first time. Even in my designs, whether I'm designing for a client or a company, I never get the design right the first time. We always come back to the drawing board and kind of make corrections. It's not until my final draft that it looks perfect and looks great. So I think that's only fair for you guys as well, because you probably can say your first assignment that you turn in is never really your best work. So it not only helps you get to know the software a little bit better, it helps your design skills because you can apply the feedback that I give you, and it also helps boost your grade a little bit. So you get a better grade the second time around. And I think it helps you prepare for employment, because in the graphic design industry, you're constantly going back, doing revisions. Even if you think the design's perfect, even if it is perfect, the client will always have something to have you change. So this is a great way, good practice, going to help you in the real world as well. Hopefully that's a fair policy. Not all instructors do it, and we are not required to do it. I just like to offer you that opportunity. So that's good news. Have you had a chance to take a look at the classroom resources, kind of navigate through the homepage? We know where all the links are. And if so, are there any questions about how to find something? I kind of wanted to give you guys a little tour before we jumped into the assignment, just in case we're not familiar. So we will go ahead and do a little online tour of our class. So this is our course homepage. And Rodney, can you see my screen okay? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure it came up. Okay, so here's the course homepage. You should be pretty familiar with it. It's pretty standard across the board. This link here, live session, it's got the Zoom logo. You'll click on that, and what's special about this link is that not only does it have the live lecture days and times, but it also has the multi-session information posted. So Tuesdays we have lectures, same time we'll have multi-sessions on Thursday at the same time. So just kind of calculate your time zone, figure out which one's which. This is the link to join if you want to join us for a live session. You are not required to be here for the live session, but you are held responsible and required to watch the recording. You're held responsible for anything that we cover in this lecture. So it usually, the students who come and watch the lectures are usually the ones that do the best in the class. So it kind of makes sense, but please be aware this is how you can join. If it doesn't work for some reason, you just copy this link in your browser. And then you have some pre-recorded sessions that you'll need to watch before you attend the lecture. They are about an hour to 2 hours long. And then you'll have our class that you will either watch or attend. And we'll cover these different objectives for the week. So this is where you'll find today's recording. So when I record, right now I'm recording, but after the meeting, I will upload it. It takes a few hours to upload and get it all set up. So by the morning, Wednesday morning, it should all be set up. So Wednesday morning, you'll go to live sessions and recordings, and you'll look under here, under this lecture 2 section, and this is where you'll find all of the recordings when I post it on a weekly basis. You can also find it under the announcements section of the course homepage. This is where I'll post all the recordings as well. I also will not always be emailing everybody out, so this is how I'll be communicating through the announcements. So be sure to check that out. And then also you can find all your information about this class in the syllabus. I won't be going into depth in this. It's just kind of for you to cover if you have any questions. You are responsible for the policies discussed in here, but we won't, for sake of time, we're not going to cover that. Let's face it, that'd be a little bit boring anyways. So let's talk about our discussion. Have you had a chance to look at the discussion or even participate? Have we come in here yet? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, that's good. I had a student ask what exactly, it was kind of long, what do I need to do for this exactly? And the main objective here is discuss the ways that past design historic eras influence our contemporary design trends today. So that is the topic we're going to be covering in this discussion. This is background information just for your information, but under the prompt, you're going to be addressing these questions. So you're going to imagine that you've been hired by a band, be your favorite band, or I guess it says, but you're going to be inspired by kind of the 1960s grunge punk. And they're going to do a series of posters promoting their upcoming concert. So what you're going to be doing is kind of asking these questions as if these clients were asking you to these specific things. And you're going to answer them. You're going to want to do some research before you answer them and kind of share your sources. You will need to cite your sources in APA format. Simply putting the link of where you were will not get you full credit. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of free APA generators online that can even help you with the correct formatting of this that you can check out. But also, see, this student, Bonnie, did a great job. She put her references there and had a good lengthy commentary on this. Now, please be aware that the required word count is 150 words, and it does need to be posted by Wednesday. And then after that, you can comment on other students throughout the week, but your initial post, the 150 word post, does need to be in by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. That's Mountain Standard Time. And that will be every week. You'll have that one deadline. And then the other replies to your peers will be Saturday's deadline. So please don't miss that. Also, you have daily checkpoints that you'll be doing every day. Please make sure that you take those daily checkpoints. I've had students that had passed their assignments but missed every daily checkpoint, and it severely hurt their grade, and some even failed. So please don't miss those. They're easy points to make up. And just a fun fact, if you do more than 4 in a week, the rest are considered kind of extra credit. So you get those extra points in the week, which is really nice. So kind of stay on top of that. Since we don't offer extra credit in this class, that's a good way to kind of get some extra points where you might have lost. Are there any questions? This was a brief little tour, but I hope it was fun. Hope you learned where to find things. No questions? We'll go ahead and move on. So we'll stop the share and we'll go back to our slides. Okay, so let's do some exercises. I love starting in InDesign, and that's kind of what our first assignment is going to be in. So let's open up InDesign, and if you'll just indicate with a smiley face or an okay that you're in it, then I'll know I can go ahead and begin. I'll wait till you open that up. Awesome. Okay, we're all set up. So just before I forget, just wanted to let you know we went over this. We're to check the announcements for the video recordings. If you feel lost, obviously you can email me, of course, have a question. The main thing here, guys, is just communicate with me. I'd be more than happy to help you and work with you as far as timing if you can communicate ahead of time. I've had students email me the day of an assignment that's supposed to be turned in saying, oh, something happened, and things do happen, but I'm not quite able to help as much as I could if there was some notice. So please reach out. We have a learning coach that is kind of class tutor, so to speak, and her name's DJ, and she's excellent, and she's ready to help. So She'll be reaching out to those who are kind of struggling in class, but you can reach out to her for any grading feedback, anything at all. You don't have to be a failing student or a struggling student to reach out to the Learning Coach. It's a great resource to use. All right, talking about if you fall behind, please contact me for a plan. I don't want you to have to fail, and I really don't want you to have to take this class over again. It's no fun for anyone. So it may not be the best to make up certain assignments in the weekly order, so I'll let you know which ones might be the easier ones or the quicker ones. So we'll just need to stay in communication, but you will need to watch the live sessions to get an A in this class. That's how all the assignments will be demonstrated, and I will show you exactly what is expected. All right, let's talk a little bit about design. I have a video I want to share with you. Can you tell me what, in your words, what graphic design is? What do you think graphic design is? Creative thinking, yeah, absolutely. Creative thinking, and then you're kind of putting it on. Well, I should say you're kind of transforming it. You're taking a message and you're making it aesthetically pleasing, right? We're going to learn what graphic design is, and I have a video to share. So let me know if the sound comes in loud and clear. So I'm going to stop this PowerPoint share, and we're going to watch a video on what we think it is. So creative thinking is a great way to describe it. Let's see what else or how else it's described as well. All right, so what did you think of that? Did anything stand out? What is graphic design? Was there any line or quote that stood out? Everything. It really is. It's everything. It's everything that you see, everything that you buy, everything. And I like the quote too that said graphic design is visualizing ideas, kind of taking that message and visualizing it. So I loved that definition. I like that video. It's a lot of fun. And that's essentially what graphic design is. It was a very visually pleasing video to watch. I really liked it. And in this course, we're going to learn all about the rich history of design and how to make successful pieces of graphic design for any situation. Even your first assignment for assignment 1, have you had a chance to look ahead at that and see what we're doing? We're going to be studying the eras of history because just like anything, history repeats itself, right? In design, and especially in graphic design. If you think, I don't know if you're into fashion or whatever, but if you follow fashion at all, even some of the styles that are coming back now were styles that were popular 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. So it's kind of funny to see how things come back. And so that's why it's important to study the history so that you have a good foundation of where to go for today's design trends. So graphic design is everywhere and it's anywhere. And as a designer, you're now part of a great worldwide creative community. You can start this week by not only watching this video if you haven't seen it before, but also kind of get inspired about what graphic design is. Think about products that you buy. Think about things that you see and how graphic design played a role in that. So here are our learning objectives for this week. We're going to define the 4 basic principles of design, and we're going to illustrate their usage. What's important about this, and also we're going to go over the Gestalt principles, is that your assessment 1 quiz is going to be over these exact things. Now, I can't go over the questions with you verbatim, but what I can do is help you get a good grade on it. So I will show you what you should be studying and focusing on for the assessment 1. Here's one of the quotes: if you can design one thing, you can design everything. And I think that was one of the quotes that was in the video. So that is kind of one of my favorite quotes. If you can design something, you can design anything. And so it's just about practice. All right, so week 1 overview. We're going to be talking in our lecture today. I briefly talked about the introductions. Please make sure you go introduce yourself. Describe yourself visually. This is an interesting assignment. I want you to kind of think about it and post an example. We want to see the pictures that either you drew or something that represents you. It can be a shape. Graphic design is visual communication. So by combining shapes, pictures, color, type, or whatever it is, designers can convey a particular message from a client to an audience in a way that is both not only memorable and unique, but something that will send a message. And so over the course of the next 4 weeks, we're both going to be learning about the history of graphic design, and you're going to be making your own unique design. So if the introduction, I want you to kind of use color, imagery, and shape, and even type to describe yourself. So think about it and share it, and let us get to know you through the imagery. Also, in discussion 1, we talked about what we're going to be doing there. Assignment 1, we're going to be reviewing design history. And assessment 1 is a quiz. You are going to need to know the Gestalt theory quite well, and we're going to be going over those concepts. But first, I'm going to do the design since we've got some people in the East Coast, and I know it's late there, so we'll cover the important stuff first. Everything is important, but the design part is usually what most students would like to know. So let's first cover the exercises. So let's switch gears. We're going to go into InDesign. So let me pull mine up real quick. Please bear with me for a minute as the screen goes black. Okay, so I've got my InDesign up, and I'm actually going to share my desktop so that we can see everything, because I'm going to be going back and forth here. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about how to set up our page. That's going to be the first thing. Let me share the desktop so we can see it all. And I'm going to open this up. Okay, so first things first, you're going to want to go to, so here's what the assignment says. I'll jump around. You're going to use InDesign. That's the software. It's going to be 6 pages long, and you need to have it 5 by 7 inches. You can choose either portrait or landscape. The way that I have mine structured is landscape. The demo I'll be doing will be in landscape. So if you'd like to follow along, this is how we'll set it up. So first things first is you go to File at the top of your screen. So follow along with me, and then I'll have you set it up, and then I want you to show me that that you have it so we can make sure we're all on the same page. Go to File, New, and this is how you'll set up a new document every time. File, New, and then select Document. A quick shortcut is Apple N if you're on a Mac, or Command N if you're on a PC. And that's a quick keyboard shortcut. You'll notice that whether it's a drop-down menu or your toolbar, there will be shortcuts that you can memorize to kind of help things go faster. Your new document box will show up, and there's a few things on here that we'll want to change. First things first is the number of pages. You'll want to select 6 because we're going to be doing flashcards. So basically a front and a back, you're going to be doing sets of 3. So you'll need 6 total pages. And then over here to the right, you'll see this box checked called Facing Pages. We want to deselect that. We don't want that box checked. And here's why. Facing pages will put pages display them side by side. So it's excellent when you're designing multi-page documents like a book or a magazine. But in this case, we're doing flashcards or kind of similar to business cards, and we don't want these pages visually side by side. So we're going to deselect that box. So uncheck it. Start at page 1. That will stay the same. We are not going to be doing a letter size, so what we're going to do is manually enter in the width and height. So you're going to go to 5 inches. You'll have to type in inches so that you get the correct unit of measurement, and then 7 inches will be the height. And so 5 by 7, and then to make it landscape, you just go over to the orientation and select landscape. Now, if you're not sure what something is called, it's really nice in InDesign. You can kind of just hover your mouse over it, and it will tell you what that icon is. So in this case, we're going to go 7 by 5 inches. All right. Margins can just default at whatever you have it as, and then you don't have to worry about a bleed or anything like that. A little trick in InDesign is if you click this preview box here at the bottom, keep it checked. As you're making changes, it will do the changes live for you. It will show you what your document's looking like. You can even add columns, and it will show you how to do that. Will show you what it's looking like. So you can make sure that you're doing it correct before you hit the OK button. So the only thing that you need to do is enter in the number of pages, deselect Facing Pages, put in your dimensions, and then everything else is kind of stays the same. You'll need to select landscape or portrait, depending on what your layout is going to look like, and then you'll hit OK. Now, this is what your document should look like when you zoom out. You should have 6 individual pages. All right. How did that one go? I'll give you a minute to set that up. And then if you feel so inclined or feel comfortable, I'd love to take a look at the page. So make sure we set it up correctly. So let me know, Rodney, if you want me to look at yours. Okay. So now that we have, you're just getting page 1? Okay, I'll wait just a minute if you'd like to share your screen. Let me know when you're ready to, and I'll close out of my page. Okay, perfect. So I'll stop the share. We can't both have our screens up for some reason, so I usually have to stop the share. Now, if you'll click Share Screen, it's an icon. It's got 2 windows, pyramid and a couple pyramids and a sun. Kind of the icon. Do you see that anywhere? Share screen. There you go. And then you'll select what you want to share. So desktop or the software. Perfect. Okay, awesome. And then if you will hit, are you on a PC or a Mac? And what I'll do, Rodney, is I'll unmute you so you can talk. Are you on a PC or a Mac?
I'm on a PC. My teacher.
Okay, so basically, if you're on a PC, if you could, are you on can you hear me? Your mic is unmuted.
I'm here.
So if
Hold on.
you'll hit Command minus. Okay, so you have page 1 set up. So what we need to do is make sure that you have all the pages. So will you go to File, click on New, go to Document. Here you go, and then go ahead and set it up one more time. So we want the, yep, to say inches exactly. And then you'll pick your orientation. Do you want that to be horizontal or, yeah, exactly. And then your pages number will be 6. Excellent. So do you want it to be portrait or landscape? You want to keep it portrait? Okay, perfect. So go ahead and hit create. All right, now hit, yeah, now is your, now you can see you've got all your pages. Another trick too is if you click that pages icon to the far right of your page, top right, it says pages. Go down a little bit more over to the right, that second column, you see that? I'll show you in mine, but good job, excellent. I'll show you another way to see that you have multiple pages or to be able to toggle back and forth. If you go to Window and click on Pages right here, it will bring up a Pages box, and you can see 1 through 6, all the pages. So if you needed to jump around at all, you could. Great job. Awesome. Okay, so very good setting that up. So just like Rodney did, he kind of demonstrated how to set up that new document. So now we've got all 6 pages. So now we're going to do 3 exercises before we jump into the demo, because I want to make sure that we're comfortable placing text and images. Have you had experience doing that before? Have you guys placed text and images in InDesign before? I'm not sure if you've had any InDesign classes before this one. But what we're going to do, I believe so. Okay, what we're going to do is grab our type tool. Our type tool is what you're going to be working with quite a bit in this assignment 1. So if you'll grab your type tool, or you can even hit T on your keyboard, that will select the tool for you. Click on it, and then you'll notice how your mouse has changed. The cursor looks a little different, and you'll click and drag a box, and this is your text box. You'll see a blinking cursor in there, and that's usually indicates that it's ready to type. So you can type some words, or you can place text just like that, or you can copy and paste from anywhere on your computer. And I have this document right here that I have up. Let me see if I can pull it. My Word doesn't seem to be responding, so here we go. Okay, so I've got this little, this text here, and what we're going to do is we're going to practice formatting text. And this is one big area that you're going to be graded on. So we're going to practice this. I'm going to put it in the chat box here. Rodney, so you have it. I don't know if that showed up. Did it show up? You don't see it? I know, I don't see it either. Let me try it one more time. If not, I'll email it to you. There we go. Oh, it did it twice. Okay. All right, got it. Okay, so just copy one of those paragraphs. What I want you to do is practice, first of all, exercise 1 is practice putting the text in a text box. So copy it and place it into a text box, just like I have it here. Okay, it doesn't matter what font it is right now or what size or what it looks like, but I just want to make sure that we can practice putting it inside. Give me a smiley face when you have accomplished that first exercise. Copying and pasting your text in a text box. And the way that you would do that is taking your type tool, clicking and dragging anywhere on your canvas, and then copy and pasting it into a text box. That's one way to place text. And if you need more room, Yep, no problem. So I'll close out of my InDesign. Go ahead and share your screen if you will, and I'll help step you through how to get it going. Perfect. And I love your questions because these are the same questions students are going to be having when they're watching this recording. They're going to run into these same issues. So we want to make sure that we get it. So it looks like your type tool is selected. So what you need to do is click and, it looks like you have a cursor already there. So that means you already have a text box laid out. If you'll click that black selection arrow on your toolbar, it's that first black arrow, yeah, your selection, and then click on, so it looks like you already have a big text box. This shows you the size of your text box. If you want to resize it, just click on those white anchor points and you can kind of resize it to more of a size that you'd want if you needed. Yeah, there you go. And then simply double clicking inside with your type tool will bring that cursor back. So now that will allow you to type or copy and paste. Excellent. Perfect. Just like that. Great job. Okay, so we'll go back to my screen real quick. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Now, what I want to do is now we have it placed. If you'll notice here, I'll grab my little pencil tool and show you in red so that we can see it. You see this here, this word? I'll zoom in a little bit more. See how it's kind of got cut off and the word wraps around to the next line? That seems to be a common mistake that most students make when they're beginners because they don't know how to turn that hyphenation off. So I'm going to be looking for that in formatting text. It's very important that we don't have those words that wrap around or get cut off. So what we're going to do is tell our InDesign document to just automatically stop hyphenating words. And the way that we do that is by going to your window, click on Type and Tables, and then click on Paragraph. That too brings up a box. And this box at the bottom has a word called hyphenate, and you'll just uncheck that. Okay? So now if you highlight your text and click hyphenate, it will no longer hyphenate your words and wrap them around. So that's kind of a handy trick to have. I'll do that one more time so you can see how it's done. You can go to Window, go down to Type and Tables, go over to the right and click on Paragraph towards the bottom. It brings up a paragraph dialog box here, and you'll just make sure that your text is highlighted first, or that there's at least your cursor is in your text box before you do it. Click on hyphenate and it will automatically stop hyphenating those words. So now nothing will get cut off. So that's the first step to formatting text. We're going to turn off that hyphenation. Give me a smiley face if you found that setting. And we're good to move on. Okay, perfect. All right. So that's kind of the first thing you want to do when you have a block of text. Now, here's our exercise. We're going to get a little trickier. What I want to do is have you format this. We have the text, but now I want you to kind of format it. What do I mean by format? Well, right now it's just kind of a run-on sentence. Rehearsal dinner, please join for ceremony, practice, and dinner, first fireside lounge, etc., etc. How do we break this up so that it reads more like an invitation? You don't have to design anything, but what would be the first thing that you would do to kind of break up the text? Yep, that's probably a good step. So you can kind of grab these little white anchor points on your text box and kind of make the box bigger at first. We'd also need to enter in some hard returns, right? So I want you to kind of practice that. Enter in some returns. What I'd probably do is, first thing is I'd kind of put a return there. So there's some breathing room. Please join for ceremony and practice dinner. I'll end there, and then I'll put the place, the date and time, I'll kind of format. And then there's a brunch, so that's going to be a separate block of text. That'll be a separate event. So I'm going to kind of just break up the text a little bit. So just by using hard returns, I'm making the formatting the text, I'm kind of making it breathe a little bit and read a lot easier. And if you see this plus sign at the bottom right of your text box, that means there's some text that can't be seen. So we just need to make that box, the text box, a little bigger. All right, so now I haven't done anything stylistically to it or visually to it. All I did was add some hard returns to kind of group the information, and it kind of reads nicely, don't you think? It's a little bit nicer to read. My eyes can scan it a little easier. So this is what I want you to practice. So I want you to practice formatting it like this. So go ahead and format it by entering some hard returns. Kind of make the returns make sense. You kind of want to group information. So first thing we have here, first group of information is the name of the event. Oops. The first thing we have is the name of the event. That's group one. What the event is. That's two. And then we grouped the where, when, and what time. And same thing with this group. Where, when, and what time, and then obviously whoever's throwing the party. So it's kind of grouped into information that I can now scan and read a lot easier. So give me a smiley face if you feel comfortable with this one. It's just adding hard returns to kind of format the text. If you're having any issues with it, let me know so we can fix it. All right. So we'll go ahead and move on. So that's the first step of formatting, is kind of just giving your text some breathing room. Next, we need to make certain things stand out, and we need to add some contrast. And we'll learn this in our lecture later in just a few minutes. But first thing we need to do is add contrast, because right now everything is the same size and it's the same type weight. So nothing stands out. When everything looks the same, nothing stands out. So the important information I'm going to want to highlight and make bigger. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is practice making this title bigger. So you can do it in two different ways. You can go to your character formatting controls, which has your font name or font family, and then the font size, where you can adjust it here. So I could go 18, make that bigger. I can also change the font to something else like that. I could also change the font weight here. You can also do it in another place. If you go to Window, click on Type and Tables, and your first one is Character, so you'll select Character, and that brings up your box here. So this box is handy to have out because you can just adjust everything this way. Your font size is here, your font weight is here, and then your font family is here if you want to pick a different font. But what I did was I just made the title bigger and I bolded it so that stands out, because that's important information. I'm also going to bold this information so that this stands out. I don't want to bold everything because then that would defeat the purpose of getting attention, right? And then Chris and Brenda is not very important, but I can also make it italic to kind of change it up, and then I can make it smaller because it's whoever's throwing it. So by using size, entering in some hard returns, and then tastefully using bold, changing the weight of text, I was able to kind of format this a little nicer. Now it reads really, really well. So what I want you to do is practice making text bigger, changing the font size. I want you to practice changing the font weight, and then I want you to practice maybe giving the last part, changing this to italic to kind of set it off, or making it smaller. So font size and font weight is kind of what I want you to try to apply. And then once you've done this, I would like to see the page if you feel comfortable sharing, and you can kind of show off what you did. So I'll give you a minute or two on the clock to kind of practice that. If you can't find something or don't know how to apply a setting, please let me know. And the reason why we're doing this mini exercise is because you're going to be required to do some research. You're going to type it up in Word, and then you're going to need to bring it into InDesign. And so you're going to need to format your text. It can't just be one big block of text. We need to format it so it's easily, you can easily read it, and that it's formatted in such a way where information is grouped. Okay, perfect. So what you'll do is go ahead and share your screen, and I'll step you through it. So we're gonna review how to bold, change the weight of text. So you have your character box up, that's perfect. So do you see the Minion Pro? That is the name of your font, so that's your font family. And then underneath it, the next drop-down menu, or I'm sorry, I just deselect off of it. That's just your font family. And then the drop-down menu under it is the font weight. So just click anywhere on the gray area, or click on your page. There we go. So you see where it says regular? That is where you're going to change the font weight. So you can change it to bold or italics. Now it looks like the font family that you've chosen doesn't have a different weight. So maybe just change to a different font. Yeah, Times New Roman should have it. So you'll need to highlight all of it, and what you'll need to go change. It's at the very top there. There you go. And then you can change the font weight. And you can click and highlight all of it. A cool trick is to hit Command A on your computer, or Control A if you're on a PC, and then select your font family. So you want to bold it, but you also want to change it to Times New Roman, right? Is that the font family you want? Yeah, exactly. So now it's all changed. Now you'll probably have to go change the other information to regular. And then you can kind of bold whatever it is that you want to bold. But yeah, that's where you're going to make the changes. And then do you see where it says 14? That's your font weight. So if you want to increase something, you have to highlight the element, and then you can apply the change. Right. Now you can make it bigger if you wanted to, or smaller if you wanted to. So that is how you change the font size, the font weight, and the font family. Great job. Excellent. So I'll let you continue working on that. I'll go back to the desktop so we can see. Okay, so just, I kind of take for granted what some do and don't know, but I just want to make sure that you understand that you take your type tool and you can click and highlight all of your text, or you can hit Command A to select all the text within that specific text box. Command A will select it all, and you can apply one change to all of it. Before you go to your character box, though, you need to have something highlighted. So it's whatever you want to change. So for instance, if I want to make rehearsal dinner bigger, I need to highlight it first and then go to my font size and enter that in. Okay. If I want to make Chris and Brenda smaller, I have to highlight it first and decrease the size. If I want to change it from italic to regular font weight, I'll have to highlight it first before I go and apply it to a regular. The reason why I'm italicizing it is because I'm trying to set it apart from the other text, so it doesn't read like it's part of the brunch information. All right, so those are just some few exercises on how to format our project. Now, that is one exercise. What I'm going to show you with the assignment is you're going to do some homework. Here's an example of a student. This example is under the assignment 1, so you can download it and pull it if you want to see it up and close. But what I wanted to show you was kind of show you the comments that were on here as well, and what got an A in the class. So basically the student studied an era, did the research, and the era was a Victorian era. And then notice how she formatted the dates. So you've got you not only have the era name and then the era dates, that's all in bold. And then to offset it, she put the answer, the Victorian, and then the date. Title. So she bolded the titles, the subheads of of the topics that she was covering. Then everything else was in regular font point. So, whoops. No, sorry, I have to update my software. So kind of see how where she added the bolding and where she used the regular font weight. She also made sure that the body text under era key elements and everything else was smaller than the era name and dates. That added some contrast. And then everything is lined up beautifully on this vertical ruler. So everything is just kind of lined up correctly and it's formatted very nicely. So I have the first paragraph to this that I was going to copy and paste, and we're going to practice formatting our assignment like this. You'll have to come up with your own content as you do your research on the era that you want to choose, but I want you to practice formatting it in such a way that you can take your information and plug in the holes. So what I'm going to do is grab the text to this, and I'll copy and paste it. So we'll practice formatting this information in our text box now. So I will go paste it here. There we go. All right, so if you want to copy that and throw it into a text box, so same concept applies. So what I'm going to do is grab my type tool on page 1, and I'm going to click and drag all the way down to the margin line. The margin line is your magenta line, and you're going to want to have your smart guides turned on. And what that is when you line something up, it will snap it into place. It'll show you a ruler. So this is you see that magenta ruler going vertical down my page. It's showing me where the halfway point is, the dead center of that page. So I don't have to eyeball it. It tells me exactly where it is. So that's where I want to bring my type box. It's just kind of that vertical ruler. Now to turn on your smart guides, you're going to go to View, click on Grids and Guides, and then you'll notice Smart Guides is right here. You're going to want that checked so that everything turns on. You're going to want Snap to Guides turned on so that everything snaps into place when you bring something in line. All right, so you're going to want those two things turned on. And now that I have my information, you'll notice that the font that I have chosen is too big because there's still content missing here at the bottom. That's indicated by this red plus sign in this white anchor point. So what we're going to do is have your cursor blinking inside that text box. You're going to hit Command A to highlight all of it, even the information you can't see. And you're going to go down, you're going to pick a font. And I'm going to go back to Arial because I like the clean look of that sans serif font. And I'm going to reduce the size until I can see all the information. So probably 9-point font, it would be good. I'm going to make the era name and dates a little larger so it stands out. It's kind of like the headline. And then the era name, I'm going to bold. That's going to be the weight that I change. And this is how I'm going to format my text. So I'm going to change the weight of the subheads, basically. So the title will be bolded. And here's another thing is if you want to apply a trait to a lot of different elements, but you don't want to keep highlighting and clicking and highlighting and clicking, what you'll do is you'll highlight the first element that you want to change and grab your eyedropper tool here at the bottom of your toolbar. If you click that and then select the text you want to copy, it will automatically format it for you. And now it's already copied into that eyedropper. So now I can click and highlight the element that I want to change. So I'm just going to click and highlight those subheads. All right, so now I'm going to highlight all of my information at Command A or Control A if you're on a PC. And you're going to go to Window, type in Tables, and find your paragraph box like we practiced. And you're going to turn off your hyphenate box. Make sure that's turned off, okay? Because we don't want anything going off on the side. So I've got this box laid out. Now the next thing that the student does is she bullets this list, which is a nice stylistic element that adds just another visually pleasing design to your page without, but still keeping it simple. And it's very simple to do. So if you, with your paragraph box open, or I'm sorry, It's under your character formatting controls. So your bullets are right here at the top right of your character formatting controls. So you have to kind of go all the way across right here, bulleted list. And if you click that, now it will allow you to kind of format it. In those bullets, there's a big gap you'll see between the bullet and the actual beginning of that sentence there. So I want to close that gap and I want to indent that bullet. So I'm just going to highlight all of it so that the change applies to all of it. And I'm going to click on, let's go to paragraph again, type in tables, click on paragraph. And I'm going to use this first setting right here. This one right here, the left indent. And I'm going to increase the indent so that the bullets are indented in. And now I need to close the gap between the bullets and the text. Oops. So I'm just going to increase the first line indent. I'm going to increase it a little bit more, just like that. All right, and maybe I don't need that. Oops, I don't need that indented quite so much, but I'll just kind of do it that way. All right, so do you see how I did that? All right, and then you'll notice I have a little widow here. This is just kind of a dangler word that should be kept on the same line as the other one. We should never have words left alone by themselves, so we want to be aware of that. So one thing you can do is highlight everything and just change the font size. You can go down to size 8 if that's a little bit better, or you can change the tracking of it, and that can be found under character. And your tracking is right here. Now the thing to be aware of your tracking is that if you change it, it will it can kind of skew the look of the letters. So look how squished those letters look because I adjusted the tracking so much. So we want to avoid the unnatural look of tracking, but we also can use it, maybe hit it once or twice to kind of get that word up to that next line. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but it's a great way to kind of get that dangler word onto the same line as the others. All right, now this is how you format the text. So I kind of am done with the hard part. And what you could do is even apply this text box, just kind of copy the text box and go to page 2, double click, you can right click, paste in place, and you can just paste the text boxes on the next page that you need and just kind of fill in the information as you go. But if you want to keep all your formatting, that's another way to do it. So I'll go back to page 1. Now, I'll stop here because that was a lot of information. Are there any questions? Are we having trouble with anything? Any formatting struggles we're running into? Are we doing good? Think you got it all? Okay, perfect. Another thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to be trying to post shorter demo videos, so maybe 10 minutes long, on how to tackle the assignment for the week. I don't know if I'm going to get to it every week, but I'll try to do it for week 1 so that we have a shorter version on how to do this assignment. I'm kind of spending time talking about formatting, whereas in the demo video, I'll kind of just breeze through how to do the assignment. So you don't have to watch a 2-hour lecture if you're just trying to figure out how to set the assignment up. Okay, so now that I have this text box placed, and notice I have it placed in my margin line, my margin, pink magenta margin box. It's all lined up so that my text has an even amount of space between the edge of the page from the side as it does from the top. And that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. So lining it up with your margin line is a great way to keep your text from getting too close to the edge, because I've seen some students line it up like this, and that's far too close, and it also looks very uneven because now you've got all this space up top, but you are squishing and condensing everything here on the side, and it's going to get cut off by the printer. So it's a good habit to get into is make sure you have even amount of space on the top as you do the side, and even the bottom if you can. All right, I could even make this box a little smaller, kind of wrap around certain words. I don't want widows, but I can kind of make it a little bit more narrow looking. But you'll notice there's even amount of space on the side and on the top. So that's kind of where my eye is going to go when I'm looking or grading this. I want to make sure everything is even and looks consistent. Now we need to practice placing an image. I just want you to go to Google, or if you have an image on your computer, it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe Google a, let's see, let's Google graphic design quote. And I want you to grab an image. So we're going to go to Google. We'll just practice this. Let's go to Google and type in graphic design image. Or I'm sorry, graphic design quote. Let's do quote. And then click on images. And I want you to just grab one. It doesn't matter. So we'll do this one here. I'll click on one. See if it'll let me. Perfect. And then you can click and drag it to your desktop, or you can save as and place it where you can find it. So just pick anything. It can be any quote. And we're going to practice placing that image into our document, okay? This is another thing that we're going to need to learn, because just like the example that we saw, she has an image, an example of what she's talking about. This is an example of the Victorian era. So you're going to need to share a visual example. So you'll have a column of text on the left-hand side, and then you'll have an image on the right side, okay? So the way that you can do that, there's two different ways. You can take the image from where you saved it, and you can click and drag it if you're on a Mac. That's a really handy way of doing it if you have a Mac. And I'll show you how to resize it in just a minute. So you can click and drag, or you can go to your toolbar here and click on your rectangle frame tool. It's got the X going through the center of it. You'll also click and drag. And then you can go to File, Place, and find where you saved it. Another way, which I like to do, is just go to File, Place. Right here in the middle. You'll find where you saved it. I'm going to go to Desktop. What I named it. Oh, pick one. Okay, and then you'll notice that your cursor has a little preview snapshot of what it is that you're going to place. So you can either click and drag the size box that you want to place it in, or you can just click anywhere on your desktop and it will place it as its true size. Now this is much larger than my page, so I'm going to have to resize it. Here's a little trick. When you're trying to resize, whether it's an image or an object, or even a text box, if you hold down Shift as you click and drag the corner anchor point of your object or image, it will constrain the proportions so that you don't skew it or squish it. So hold down Shift and I believe it's Shift and Command will constrain your proportions. Sorry, Shift and Command if you're on a Mac, and Shift and Control if you're on a PC. So I'm going to just keep holding down Shift and Command until I kind of shrink it down until I get about the size that I'm looking for. And I'm trying to get everything to fit within that margin line so that everything ends at the same point and begins at the same point. If I were to click and drag a ruler down, everything lines up really nice and pretty at the top there. My text box isn't above it. It's not running through the ruler. And my picture isn't above it running through the ruler. So everything kind of lines up the same point. So that is how you'll place an image. So what I want you to do for our next exercise is to practice placing the image. So grab a quote, the image quote, and then I want you to place it on a page. And I want you to demonstrate how to, or practice how to resize it. If you wanted to shrink it down or if you wanted to make it bigger. And remember, to do that, we hold down Shift and Command as we click and drag the corner anchor point. So we'll just click on it, Shift and Command, and then you can, any anchor point will do, but I usually like to do the corner anchor points. Okay? Give me a smiley face if you feel comfortable with that exercise. And feel free to if you want to demonstrate it, you're more than welcome to. Just let me know if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that is a great question. So I was asked, okay, what do you do about object fitting and fitting the object proportionally? Okay, so pretend that you place the image, but the actual image is this brown, indicated by this brown box. Now, it's much bigger than the actual text or picture frame. So what I need to do is click on the icons up here, and I want to click on Fit Content Proportionally. So what it's going to do is it's going to fit the content proportionally in that frame box. Now, if things are still getting cut off, you can always click on fit content, or I'm sorry, fit frame to content, and it will resize the frame to fit your content. But fill frame proportionately seems to work great. That's a great question. So you can kind of play around with the different settings up here. Okay, so go ahead and share your screen, and we'll see what happened. Okay, where is your picture or your frame box? Okay, can you hit W for me on your keyboard? There you go. Okay, so now you can see you have, it's a different view is what that is. So that's the picture that you want to place. Can you demonstrate how to resize it? Hold down Shift and Command and click and drag an anchor point. So select it. And now hold Shift and Command. And then click and drag one of the anchor points as you're holding the Shift and Command down. Right, and as he's doing this, it's proportionately constraining the proportions and it's resizing it. Excellent. And that's how you would do it if you were to make it bigger as well. So you could shrink that down until you get it to the size that you want. Excellent job. So that is how you would resize an object and place it. Does that answer your question, Rodney? Any other questions? Perfect. Okay. All right, we're doing good. And I just looked at the clock, and so it looks like we're at our 10-minute break already. Time flies when you're having fun. We're going to go ahead and take our 10-minute break. When we come back, I'll finish the demo of the assignment. I just wanted to show you the 3 exercises that you're going to need to perfect for this, this assignment 1. First one is formatting your text, placing text in a text box, and proportionately resizing an image and having it placed. Those are the 3 things that you're going to need to master for this assignment, because 3 of the 6 pages are going to need to look exactly like this. Okay, you could even get fancy and maybe get a line tool and kind of have it line up. Whoops, it's far too. I don't want it red. There we go. Just to kind of divide things nice and even, but notice how it starts and stops at the same point as the picture does. So it doesn't go beyond the picture. Everything is very consistent and evenly laid out. So if I were to grab a ruler, it would line up really flush at the bottom there with everything else. So that's another way to kind of add some visual elements. But otherwise, this is all I'm concerned with, is how did you format your text and how did you place these images in your pages. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. 10 minutes, we'll come back and I'll finish the demo, and if you have any questions, we can go over it then. So we will go ahead and stop the screen share and take a quick break. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, so we are back, and are there any questions before we jump back into the demo? Feeling pretty good? That's great. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of breeze through the rest of this because we do have some lecture to go over. So the other thing that we're going to need to cover is what do we do with those other pages? So page 1, we have, let's see, move this up. Okay, so page 1, we have the information. Now we have to design the back of the card. And the way that the student has it designed is that the student chose to do a color scheme. It's an interesting design on the back, pulling from the colors in the picture that they chose. Now, if you'll notice, this example isn't the best example because the back of each card is a little bit different design. And I think they should have kept it the same, just changing the color scheme. They even went vertical on this one and changed from the horizontal layout, which I didn't like. So what I suggest is keep everything consistent. So what we're going to do is create a basic design on the back, and then you can change those colors later depending on what color scheme you want to include. So what I'm going to do is grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag from the top corner of the page to the bottom. And notice how my smart guides line it up with those green arrows. They're saying, yep, you're lined up. So then I'll release that. I'm going to turn off my stroke. I don't want a stroke. I'm going to turn off the stroke color. But the fill box at the top, I am going to give a color. And I'm going to use my eyedropper tool for this job. And I'm going to kind of grab that gray in there. And I'll click inside my box. I'm going to turn off my stroke. Oops, saying I still have it. There we go. And so I'm just going to do one solid color. And then I'm going to kind of resize it. And I'm going to grab another rectangle tool. Just like this. So I'm going to kind of do like a tapered look between, and each box is going to get be a different color. So now I'm going to grab that nice cream in there. Let's see. Swap that. There we go. My stroke is on, so I'm going to get that turned off. And then for this one, I'm going to grab a similar color, maybe this this brown. I'm going to click in there. Turn the stroke off. And you can kind of play around with the color scheme to see what would look best. I'm trying to see if maybe I should just do different a different green instead of that orange. I don't like all those colors. So maybe just do a lighter green. Let's see if I can grab it. There we go. Kind of too light. You can also double click this fill box here at the bottom of your toolbar, and you can move your cursor around to kind of find the color or the shade that you're looking for. And I think I found it. I kind of go in here and hit OK. So that could be my color scheme. I could also do a darker cream. I don't really like that shade, but I can go and play around with the different colors. You could even do this one and then just change change it a little bit. It doesn't really match, but you could kind of play around with the colors. I think I'll stick with that dark green though. That seemed to work pretty well. And for this one, I'm just gonna go into maybe a darker color there. Okay, perfect. So that's kind of a good color scheme to use. So this is my color scheme. So now what I'm going to do is copy this design. I'm going to highlight all the boxes, click and drag until you select all the boxes, or you can hold down Shift and click each box individually. Then you can copy it, Command C, and then paste it on every other page. So on the even numbers is where you'd paste the background color, and paste. Now what you can do is you can choose to leave it the same color scheme as your design, or you can give it a different color scheme as for each card. So for instance, if I were to place this picture on page 2, this will be the next example. So if this was my image, and I wanted to pick a color scheme to apply, I could do that. I could maybe I want this one to be the dark color, and maybe this one I want to be the yellow. And then this one I want to be the light gray that they're using. Oh, make sure to turn off that stroke. There we go. All right, so now that one, it's the same design, but it's just a different color scheme so that it matches the back of the card. So do you see how I did that? And then the picture 3 would be something completely different and would look like this. And then I would just go and pick a different color based off of this design. Okay, so it looks like that cream is about the same color. I would probably just change this one to the blue. I'd grab that blue color in there. And I could change this one to red if I wanted to. And turn off that stroke. So if you zoom out, it's the same design, it's just different colors were used. You could do that, or you could keep them all the same color. That's totally up to you. So that's kind of the idea behind the back of the card. You don't have to do anything, but it's just the front of the card that you're going to have different information for. So does that kind of help give an idea of how to set up the document, what to look for, and what I'm going to be looking for, and then how to kind of save yourself some time on this? Don't be intimidated with the 6 pages. 3 of the pages are pretty much the same. You could just choose to keep them the same. So, all right. So have fun with this. Do some homework. Write it out. I recommend typing it out first in a Word document because it has spell check and you can kind of organize it how you want, and then you can copy and paste it or place it into your InDesign document and format it then. So that's kind of what I recommend. But we'll go ahead and stop here with the demo, and let's talk about we're going to switch gears and kind of talk about the rules of graphic design, because this is stuff you're going to be graded on, and also you're going to have your assessment 1 on these principles. So I'm going to share let me pull it up. Bear with me. So the second portion of this class will be going over what you're going to need to know for the assessment 1. And pull this up. Okay, perfect. All right, so assessment 1 quiz is going to be over the Gestalt theory and the principles of design. And we're going to kind of blow through the next few of these slides pretty quickly since class is almost up. But if you have any questions, please come to the multi-session. This is going to be Thursday. Sorry, this should say Thursday, 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. So come on Thursday and I'll take care of you. All right, so basic design principles. What are principles? Okay, so can anyone tell me what the Gestalt principles are? Have you guys heard of this before, or is this a new concept? I'm not sure if your other graphic design classes have covered this. Let's see. Yeah, it looks new. Okay, so we'll spend some time on this. All right, so this is what your quiz will be over, or your assignment 1 quiz. The Gestalt theory, the term Gestalt just means unified whole. It basically refers to the way that we as humans look at groups of objects. So in the 1920s, a group of psychologists in Germany developed a series of theories of visual perception. And these were called the Gestalt principles, or the Gestalt theory. And it's also known as the form of the basis of many design rules that we follow today. So that's why we want to learn that first thing. That's why it's important for graphic and web designers to learn these principles. So if you understand what they tell us about how we perceive visual objects and their arrangements, you'll be able to create a more coherent design when you start applying them, and it will better connect with your audience. And so that's why we want you to learn these things. There are 6 of them, and we're going to go over what each one means, and I have an example for each one. So this one is called proximity. So proximity is just another word for grouping, and proximity works, it basically occurs when elements are placed close together. They tend to be perceived as a group, right? So do you see these boxes here, this 3x3 boxes? This is grouped together, so it looks like they're kind of a one whole object. But when you separate the boxes and give them space, they no longer look like they are together. They're kind of spread out, kind of splattered all over. And so there's no organization to this. So proximity is how close is an object to another object, and does that are they grouped in some way? So the arrangement of boxes on the left are not close enough to have proximity, while the group on the right is perceived as a single whole element. So look at this ad here on the right. Each of the text elements in this ad are grouped together with a distinct box. So this grouping is an example of what design principle? See how the text is all grouped together? What would we call this if we're grouping this text together on this ad? Proximity, exactly. So this ad is an example of proximity. Now, if you're consciously putting elements together in a composition to make it easy to scan, which design principle are you supporting? If you're purposely putting elements together in a composition, what design principle are you supporting? Proximity, right? So that's what we mean by proximity. It's just grouping elements together. Okay, continuation. This is an example of continuation. Continuation occurs when the eye is compelled to move through one object and continue to another object. And the thing with continuation is that continuation is a principle through which the eye kind of draws along a path. So we see this example in space, the line or the curve. Our eyes prefer to see a single continuous figure and then separate lines, and so we kind of connect the dots in that way. This can be used to point towards another element. So in this case, it's pointing towards a star. And the bottom example, it's pointing towards what? This bottom example, it's pointing towards a leaf. So we often see this curve or this aligning perfectly with a secondary element. So we really want to make sure that continuation is kind of easy to see. I like the use of this negative space that they do here. And then in this picture, in this example, the eye is led through the first design element towards the star that aligns with the curve. So this is an example of continuation. Now, this is what we call closure. And closure is a common design technique that uses the human eye's tendency to see closed shapes. Closure works where an object is incomplete, like we see in this example A, or the interior space of an element is not fully closed. But when the viewer perceives a complete shape by filling in the missing information, so we automatically can tell that this almost was a square because our mind and our eye are working together. This technique is often associated with the stenciled artwork, but it's also closely associated with logo forms, like you see here in this G. So basically, according to the principle of closure, which shape is most visually stable and why? Would it be A or B? B, right. So closure states that the closed shape are more stable, but our eye automatically draws those lines. Excellent. So picture one here, the World Wildlife Fund logo uses the closure principle to describe a panda. And even though the shape is not fully closed, the thing with this one is our eyes kind of connect the dots. So we make the insinuation that this is in fact a panda. All right, so when we talk about similarity, the thing with similarity is that when objects look similar to one another, viewers often see the individual elements as part of a pattern or a group. So this is a really cool picture, an example of similarity. This image here was created by abstract shapes, triangles mostly, but yeah, it looks like it's all triangles. So these abstract triangle shapes kind of created the Statue of Liberty. So our eyes are kind of, because the shapes are similar and because they were grouped together, this effect can be used to create a single illustration like we see here, an image or a message from a series of separate elements. So they're using separate triangles, which are the separate elements, but they're creating one common individual element, which is the Statue of Liberty. So this design has similarity because the individual elements that make up the design have the same basic shape characteristics. Attention is also drawn in picture number 2 to the different element in this composition because it breaks the pattern of similarity. So which square breaks the pattern of similarity? Yeah, it would be the second one, the middle square. So the similarity between different elements can be shape, it can be color even. So even the middle one is not only a different shape, but it's also a different shade of color. It can be size, it's also bigger, and the texture has been changed, or the value. So the more commonality that individual elements have, the greater the sense of coherence, thanks to the Gestalt principle of similarity. And similarity is a great concept to implement in our formatting our text. We want the body text to all be the same size, right? We want our text to be the same size so that it looks unified and it flows a lot nicer. It's easier to read. This third example is hard to see, but this cover for the Beatles album, Hard Day's Night, uses the principles of similarity and anomaly. And this particular element can be emphasized when it's dissimilar, breaking the pattern of similarity. So the middle guy, it's hard to see, here is much different, and then he's making different faces. But this opposite of similarity is called anomaly. But this is a good example of when objects look the same as one another, it's similar. Pretty self-explanatory on that one. Okay, here's a concept I don't know if you've heard of called figure and ground. Now this one's really interesting. Figure and ground often uses the idea of light and shade to help create an image that kind of jumps out from a series of shapes. And we've seen this before, kind of like, do you see the old woman or the young woman? And just based on the figure and ground, the principles kind of describing the eye's tendency to see and separate objects from its surrounding background. So here we are able to see two faces, but it could very well be something else. It could be a candlestick. Which one do you see? So this is an example of figure and ground. The principle describes not only the eye's tendency to see and separate objects, but this is a classic example that uses the base candlestick illustration to kind of show two faces peering at each other. But you can also see this effect in a variety of logo designs. It works because human eyes want to see the figure, which is the foreground object, the one in front, and the background, which is the ground, as two different planes of focus. So it's kind of an interesting design concept, but this is one of the principles that that Gestalt talks about. And symmetry and order is another one. Basically, simply put, this picture here is the symmetrical figure that makes up the windmill shown below, shown here, and it provides a sense of order and balance. So basically, symmetry, you can achieve symmetry by providing a good balance or sense of symmetry in your design elements, such as the windmill illustration here. This provides your viewer with a feeling of harmony because everything it's orderly, it's done on purpose, it's forming something symmetrically. And so this is an example of symmetry and order. Are there any questions about the Gestalt principles that we just went over? If you want to know more, I can send you a link of blogs and other articles. But your videos should, or I guess your readings will cover most of this information, but this is a really quick review of these principles. So there's a video I was going to show. We'll see if we have time at the end of class to show it. But it's how to create unity, variety, balance, and rhythm in your designs. And I just wanted to cover this real quick. If we have time at the end, I'll show it. We're going to talk about the CRAP principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. You will be graded according to these principles. So these are design principles which are separate from the Gestalt theories. And maybe I will show this video to kind of introduce it because I think it's important that we understand it. And I like videos because they're a lot more interesting than me just talking. But they are very helpful and they give visual examples. So let me just turn it.
It's always a good idea to review basic design principles.
Here, one sec. There you go.
When you're working with not only typography, but basically anything that you use in graphic design, such as imagery or graphic shapes. In this case, I'm going to focus more on the use of typography as they work with these basic design principles. So I'm going to give you a simple example of each of these 9 principles and how you can think about them when you're working with your text layouts. They are, of course, unity, variety, balance, rhythm, emphasis or focal point, contrast, breathing room, or sometimes called negative or white space, proportion, and scale. The first one I'm going to show is unity. And I have very simple shapes here, and I have some Greeking text to show you examples of how a layout can bring together disparate elements to become unified. And what's working here as far as the layout goes is the way that these elements are aligned. That's what brings these into good unity. Of course, I'm using the same typeface throughout the piece, and that also adds to unity. But I'm pulling these ruler guides down here to show you how different elements are aligned on this piece here. And the most important ones are the 4 margins around the edges. The title and the left side of the paragraph here and the left side of this gray bar, which could be a photograph or it could be just a basic shape, really serve to bring it together because they're aligned nicely. You can see that there's alignment on the bottom and on the right as well. Now, the darker gray square here the top of it is aligned with the baseline of the word unity, the title, but you could also extend it to the top of this lighter gray square if you wanted to align it with the top of the title. So you do have a little leeway there. But regardless of which you choose, the fact that these are aligned really tightly and nicely serve to give it a good unity and working well together. We can even get away with not having a straight edge on this paragraph. There's a ragged edge here, and that's okay because the outside elements are nicely and tightly lined up and serve to work well together. So that is one way you can make unity work in your favor. Variety is another design principle, and these gray squares could indicate paragraphs of text. They could be text or imagery, whatever. But the thing that stands out, of course, is the variety of that red shape in the layout there. Now, that could be text set in a different color. It could be a red bar with, say, white text inside of it, to be a variety, give variety to the layout of black text on a white background, for instance. It could also be a nice way to separate this third rectangle on the right from the other two on the left. Sometimes you have a separate piece of text which is a different topic and you want to separate it from the others yet still take up the same amount of space. So putting a variety element in there, like a different color or a different font, something to break it up, gives visual interest to the page. And you'll get the hang of how to work with variety the more that you do it. A lot of these things take some time to develop, but the more you practice with them, the easier they will become.
All right, so we're going to stop there. So that's a brief introduction of some of the design principles and visual examples of how they're applied. So unity.
Big ones, two major ones that we will be covering. But let's look here. We're going to talk about these ones. Contrast. Contrast is, here's an example of contrast. It basically, if the headline and body copy of an ad was all the same size, which design principle might be lacking? It would be contrast, because contrast creates a visually interesting design. It creates hierarchy through, you can do that size, color, shape, and placement. Contrast focuses, like I have here in the color, just adding a different contrast in a color or a type weight. It focuses our attention and should be used to highlight the most important points, which is why we contrasted the era name and the era date when we were formatting our assignment 1. It's why we used contrast to change the font weight of the invitation text. We wanted to change the contrast of the headline. And so this is how we focus attention on important things that matter. Here is an example of contrast. What elements are being used in this example to create contrast? What do you see that stands out to you that would be a good example of contrast? Yeah, proximity of elements, absolutely. Also, what I noticed to contrast is you've got this black and white layout, but then they use this pop of color to add some contrast to the color scheme. Contrast is just that different element that makes something stand out. So another thing that they're doing, you talked about proximity, is just how they've blocked the columns of text, how they've grouped those two images. They kind of use text and then images. That's contrast. The contrast here, the main focus would be the color. The yellow is the contrast from the white and black or black and white layout that they've got going here. Good job. All right, so let's talk about repetition. This creates a visually cohesive design. Repetition creates a continuity in text and the concept for the reader. It also, by repeating similar shapes, colors, and fonts, it makes sure elements have a friend. So let's look at an example here. What is a repetitive element? What do you see is an example of repetition? What element on the page is being repeated? For this example, it would be the circles, right? The circles as the design element are an example of repetition because they're using them more than once. They're repeating the circle pattern on this layout. Also, the dashed lines are an example of repetition. But because they're repeating them in such a way, it's kind of creating this sense of unity, like it's meant to be like that. And so that's repetition. That's an example of it. Alignment and balance is another one, and it's just one that you'll have to get with practice, but by using your smart guides and your ruler guides turned on, you'll be able to align your elements a lot easier. Symmetrical balance, it's formality, it's restful. This is achieved by making all elements visually equal on all sides. Remember how we talked about making sure there's enough space on the edge of the page as there was the top and the bottom of the page? That is how we create alignment and balance. You can also just note that the visual center of a page slightly higher than the actual center. So it's important to use our smart guides instead of trying to eyeball where we place elements. But this is a great way to help things feel more unified. Let's look at alignment and balance here. They're using several different alignments. They're using a right justified in the bottom paragraph here on the left-hand column, and also with the headline. And then they're kind of balancing it out by using a left justified on the next page and in the text. And so this is kind of adding balance to the page. So one side isn't more text heavy than the other. So this is a great way to include. And notice how all the text boxes are lined up nice in the same vertical spot as the others. So this is a great example of alignment. All right, next we'll talk about proximity and grouping. We mentioned proximity earlier. This creates kind of a logical and a visual connection by grouping objects in text that belongs together in proximity to each other. So if we were to create a visual focus, we want to be able to leave enough space around an individual or a group of objects to make sure it stands out. If we have too much clutter on a page, then nothing stands out. So we really want to focus by giving that white space, that breathing room. Even in generous margins, remember, use your margin box to guide. Stick within that and nothing outside the edges of that margin box, and you will be creating a beautiful white space. Enough space to separate the text and the images. Proximity rules are just keep things from moving off the page or being split by space. And here's an example. Proximity and grouping. Notice how they're not only grouping these images together with very little space in between, but they are roughly the same size image. So they are feeling more grouped and unified. And then look at this beautiful white space below it. It's all even, and then the columns of text are even grouped together. They're the same size grouped together here at the bottom. And that creates some proximity and grouping that adds to this design. It makes it feel very unified, very on purpose, very artsy. And so you'll find as you're going through all of these different principles and theories that as you start applying them to your designs, you'll notice, hey, or even when you're looking at a design, you'll see a design you like and you're like, that just works. Why does it work? And I want you to kind of try to pinpoint what principles is that designer including in their designs. So that's probably a good exercise to do, as you're going through your assignments. All right, that's all we have for the lecture. Are there any questions on the principles of design? Okay, if there's no questions, then I'll go ahead and we'll talk about those principles in application to our design. Now, can you tell me what elements are a good example of proximity on my page here? I'm going to grab my pencil tool. We're going to kind of talk about that. So proximity is another word for grouping. So an example of grouping would be the fact that I grouped this information. I'm grouping title and creator as a group. Key elements is a group. My bullets are a group. And contemporary application is a group. And each one of these paragraphs is a group. And I'm separating that, I'm indicating that by my white space in between each one, the hard return in between each one. That's how I would demonstrate proximity and grouping. What would be an example of contrast on my page? An example of contrast would probably be the fact that I changed the font weight on the headlines, or the subheadlines here, the subtitles, I should say. So title is bolded, creator is bolded, everything before the colon, the semicolon is bolded. And so this is a way that I'm creating contrast. I'm also creating contrast not only by the font weight, but also the font size. Notice how I made this section the larger font weight than the other section. So by making something larger, I'm creating contrast. Also, the biggest contrast here on the page is I've got all this text and I'm balancing out with contrast of an image on the right-hand side. So that's an example of contrast. An example of the next one was alignment and balance. Notice how if I were to take a vertical ruler and line it up right here, my text starts at the same point. And pretend there's this imaginary vertical ruler guide right here. Everything lines up beautifully and flush with my margin line. And same here on the right-hand side. Everything lines up beautifully and flush with my margin line. So that is called alignment. And because I have a heavy column of text here on the left, I'm going to have a nice big picture on the right. Everything is the same size. That's how I'm creating balance. So that's an example of those principles implemented. When you are done with your design, though, here's how you're going to save it. You're going to go to File. You're going to go to Adobe PDF. And then you're going to click on Smallest File Size. And then it will give you a box. It will export it. You'll name it the way that the assignment asks you to name it. And then you're going to click on Save. Remember, put it somewhere where you remember to find it. Make sure the PDF preset says smallest file size. That means it'll be a quick upload for you and a quick download for me. And then you'll want to make sure that the pages say all is selected and then hit export. And that will create a PDF. So that is what you're going to submit. I don't need your InDesign document. However, you will want to keep a copy of it so that you can go back and make changes when I give you the feedback for the grading. And then you'll also want to keep, it's always best practice to keep an actual original file. So if you need to go make changes or create another PDF that way. Are there any questions about how to do the assignment or about the principles that we've learned? Hopefully this will be a fun week for you and not too terribly challenging. All right, so if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and let class out. And I appreciate you coming today and sticking with me, and I hope this was helpful for you. I will be posting a shorter version on how to do the assignment later on, but look for the recording. If you want to see it a Wednesday morning, it will be up. So have a great night. Thank you so much for coming and participating. We'll see you later.